Colorblind people, what have been your biggest "oh I fucked up" moments due to your condition? I nearly dropped microbiology lab because as I went from station to station to look through the microscopes I could never see what they were seeing or talking about. On the test, the first station was spores. They'd been stained so you could see two types. One pale red, one pale green, all intermingled in the slide. I finally called the proctor over and said I thought the slide was messed up. We went back and forth. Finally said, "Wait here." He found a colorblind test. Turns out my troubles were because I can't tell the difference between reds and greens, at least in the paler shades. I'm color deficient. I had a similar experience in an earth science class. Really struggled to identify different types of rocks for the final because subtle color differences. I talked to the teacher and was able to get an alternate assignment figured out. I once painted a forest red and presented it to class. You could have bullshitted your way through like it's symbolic to how the trees are dying in red. Color represents the blood. A+ confirmed. Experienced bullshitter, huh? Either a lawyer or modern artist. I had dressed my niece for school one morning and apparently her shirt didn't go with her yellow pants. I wasn't aware the pants were yellow. There's been a few. When I was in kindergarten, my teacher sat down with my parents to discuss what they thought was the beginnings of a learning disability because I struggled with colors. My mom started making sure that all my coloring pencils, crayons were labeled with the shades going forward, so she long suspected I may have been colorblind. Or a bit slow. Lol. Sure enough, when I got older I wanted to apply to the RCMP here in Canada, a federal police service. Aced the test. Then I went to get my eyes tested. Colorblind. The cranky old doctor told me to find a different career, but at least I was finally diagnosed after years of struggling with basic colors. Since then my color issues have mostly affected me in regards to clothing blunders. Buying shirts that I thought were white or off-white, to find out later that they were a pale pink. Wearing socks I thought were blue but they're purple. Being completely unable to match basic outfits when buying dress clothes in the store. For some reason I can't distinguish mold on bread. Made my toast one day, served it to her and noticed she was only picking at it. Sure enough, it was covered in mold and she was trying to be nice. I straight up couldn't see the mold spots. Oof, I never thought that not knowing you were colorblind could cost you a job. Skeptical smiley face. My dad worked for a very large vehicle company. They insisted they transfer him to the paint department but he asked to not be transferred. They had a lot of people try to not work in that department because it was harder work. So they thought he was refusing because he didn't want to do it. He didn't last a week in that department after he kept using the wrong colors and had a line of miscolored side mirrors. He's really colorblind. Couldn't he have told them he was literally colorblind, or didn't he realize it at the time? Maybe they just wouldn't believe him as apparently nobody wanted to go there. Every time I let slip to someone new I'm colorblind, it's an "oh I fucked up" moment, followed by "what color is this?" Quote, I started lying to people who do that years ago. It depends on how obnoxious they are. If they seem to be actually trying to understand, I'll explain how I see as best I can. On the other hand, if they are pointing to Coke cans they get answers like black. Well, technically clear. I literally can't. Things are red so I'm looking at the Coke inside the can. Yes, that does mean I can see straight through your shirt. You should probably get that mole checked out. I was feeling sick for a couple days. Then one day, my girlfriend stopped me as I was making a sandwich and told me it had mold on it. Turns out I had been making sandwiches with moldy bread for days, but couldn't tell because the mild kind of blended in with some patches of flour. Long story short, I was kicked off the bomb squad. All the wires were gray. All I can see is light gray, medium gray and dark gray. Human biology in high school was a stone bitch. There is very little in that field of study which is not color-coded, and poorly so. Lots of those moments there. My brothers also thought it funny to sneak an item of red clothing into my whites, so that I would go to school and be halfway through my day wearing pink socks without knowing it, before someone who didn't like me would be sure to let me know, because we also tend to have better night vision. I've done things like fail to notice that my headlights aren't on when driving at night, because I could see just fine. Turns out, this can somewhat alarm your less gifted passengers when it occurs though. It's also fun to be treated like you're hallucinating crazy when you point out wildlife in the brush only to find that what is plain as day to you is something they can't see. Sometimes even after the animal has been startled into movement. Related to that is when a normie insists two items of tan or khaki clothing are the same color, even though you can plainly see that they are different. It's surreal. Like suddenly, the other person is the one who's colorblind. Colorblind people are extra good at spotting camouflage for that reason. It's been used in the military a bunch. Not me, but I used to work in a tattoo shop with a guy that was colorblind. He had to be very careful to label all of his colors correctly on bottles. They come in bottles labeled with color, but artists often mix bottles of custom colors and pour them in specific order. One day he was not careful enough. He was working on a floral piece and somehow got one of his shades of red and green mixed up. Oops. He eventually specialized in black and gray tattoos and then stopped altogether because, well, people want options. He's mechanic now. The worst. I blew a red with two friends in the car because to me, it was green. Now I check the location of the light and its color. Maybe you should really avoid driving, especially with your friends around. Just ask them to drive instead. I have driving license too, but only in case it was needed. I only use subway nowadays. I used to fly recreational aircraft and was always bitter that I couldn't get a GA rating due to my color blindness, and always thought it wasn't even relevant anymore. Then one day I was flying cross-country and flew straight into a military-controlled zone cause I got the colors of the lines wrong on my nav map. Once I bought black socks to go with my navy blue suit, but they were actually green. Ironically, I later married a woman who was a color analyst for a major publisher. I now happily defer to her on all things involving color. Working as a cook in a busy breakfast restaurant, all the pancake waffle batters were in large buckets. I needed to make waffles, so I poured the batter in the waffle irons and went back doing other things while they cooked. Then the worst smell, like burnt vinegar. I had poured coleslaw dressing in there as I couldn't tell the color differences. BTW. It ruined the waffle irons and we needed to buy new ones. Long sigh. I was already super nervous about going to my son's soccer presentation day, because we definitely did not fit the demographic of the mostly middle-class soccer club, and my son's team was full of very snotty people who judged us for both working full-time in the place we lived, etc., etc. So I bought a new outfit. Was super careful about colors as always, going with expensive jeans I couldn't really afford and this white linen blouse. Determined not to eat because you can make damn sure I'm going to spill something on any top that's not black. Rushing over to the marquee for my son's age division awards, and the marquee was set up on this beautiful lush green lawn, with red ropes for the bottom section of the marquee and white ropes for the top layer, which added sort of a porch area around the space. I saw the white ropes, didn't see the red ropes. Flat on face into one of the fancy mums who was holding a tray of her son's food while he lined up for his award. Dirty, covered in sauce, hungry, and the icing on the cake. All of them laughing about how I must be colorblind not to see the ropes. Yep. When I broke my hand back in high school, I picked a bright neon green cast when it appeared to me to be a muted green. I did not hear the end of that. Not me but a friend's dad. She walked in on him painting her purple room green, asked what he was doing, and apparently he couldn't tell the difference between the two colors. When you're playing a video game and they rely on you to heal and move out of stuff and it's all the same color in their colorblind mode is terrible. Looking at you. Well, and your crappy void nonsense. I would recommend the add-on GTFO. It makes a noise anytime you stand in the bad stuff. I tried to get an all-black outfit, so I went to school wearing blue shirt with light green shorts. Or I went to school with a pink shirt on. My color blindness is most severe for pinks and grays. So I thought the shirt was gray, but it was pink, and in first grade it's a girl color to wear pink, so I was the girl. I also colored the sun a bright green. There's actually a green sun in a comic called Homestuck. It's kind of a big deal in its story P. I found one in the wild. Crazy. Not a fuck up, but reading analyzing colored topographical maps. A teacher of mine is colorblind, and he insisted that one things on the map was a city. Yeah, no. It was a forest. Took all 22 of us to convince hi monsieur. They nearly held me back and wanted to put me in special education classes because I colored the grass brown and trees green. It never occurred to my teachers that I couldn't tell the difference. Yellow and red traffic lights look the same, so sometimes I want to floor it through a red light, or slam on the brakes when it's actually yellow. I started to buy basic gray color schemes so clothes don't have to fully match. An NBSP. An NBSP. An NBSP. __, but the biggest fuck up I can remember, __. Having roommates in college and constantly using their toothbrushes. Cringes. So I'm changing the oil on my girlfriend's car. Apparently Impreza transmissions also have a drain bolt, the same size as oil pan bolt. I drained the transmission fluid and didn't realize until she came out and asked why the oil is red. Strong protanopia color blindness here. I wore a white shirt to high school. It wasn't white, it was light pink. I was also overweight and unpopular and had really long curly hair. PowerPoint slides that nobody but me can read. My first job was in the visuals department at a store. Macy's-like, but a much smaller regional brand. During the holiday season, the store was littered with these little round display tables that displayed small gift items in ornaments, with many individual pieces spread across each table and decorated with a season-appropriate colored tablecloth. My assignment was to remove all the little knickknacks from each table, very time-consuming, and replace the tablecloths, with each table alternating between red and green, and then replace I tried my best, but since I am red-green colorblind, the alternating part of the assignment didn't work out so well. After the first few departments, I became familiar enough with the cloths to distinguish them by texture rather than by color. But I did end up having to redo a wage-wastingly high amount of my original work. Edit. And a bonus. In elementary school, I had a teacher who used a rotating pattern of chalk colors to post our daily agenda, I suppose to help us distinguish which day of the week was which. And for some reason, she skipped the agenda entirely on Mondays. It took me half the year to realize that her Monday color was a dark red that was invisible to me, in contrast with a blackboard. Been painting stuff wrong for a while but never noticed because no one in art class cared. Got diagnosed in a school checkup and parents refused to believe me. So the fuck up was basically every time I would casually misrepresent a color. It's honestly surprising how many times colors came up in my daily life. Family would berate me over not trying hard enough and then proceed to play the "what's this color over here" game till I used facial cues to figure it out just to make them stop. So pro tip: if your parents refuse to acknowledge that you have a problem, then ask a professional, cause these guys have no idea what they are talking about. Not me, but my uncle wore a purple suit to a funeral thinking it was a dark blue. I personally am not colorblind. I remember in 8th grade chemistry, while in the process of the periodic table, We performed a lab in which we would see how flames reacted to various elements. A classmate of mine was distracted while the teacher was talking and she said, "What color does sulfur make a flame?" And in the most confident voice, he replied, "Purple." I don't exactly remember the colors. And she thought she had bested him in one. She forgot he was colorblind and the whole class had to explain he was indeed technically correct. TL. Dr. 8th grade teacher forgets student of 3 years is colorblind and embarrasses herself. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.